Well, hey YouTube, welcome back once again. It's been a while, but I was sitting here this morning pulling in some pictures from a recent trip that we took, and I thought, you know what, I'm working on this photograph. I want to share it with all of you on YouTube. And I'm sure the title always gives it away in the description there that today we're talking about selective blurring in a picture. And this is a nice way to really make a picture pop. Let's go ahead, we're going to get started right on the computer right now, and we'll get underway here. Okay, so this is our end result right here that you can see with this beautiful shot that I took. You know, when you're taking pictures, you always have to look and relook at something you're taking a picture of. And I took this picture and I thought, wow, this is really a cool shot. And I didn't realize how cool it was until I got home and I put it on the computer and I started having a look at this. So as you can see here, I already did a selective blur in the back. I'm working with multiple layers. And I'm going to show you each step of the way that you can do this with one of your photos, or maybe many of them. And I hope that you like this tutorial. If you do like this tutorial, give it a big thumbs up, and please subscribe. And you know where to click for that. So let's go ahead and get started. It should be the original. We're going to right click it and open it up in Photoshop Elements Editor. Right now I'm in the Photoshop Elements Organizer, and I did a lot of videos on that before. Let's go ahead and open this photograph up. And you can see here it opens in Camera Raw because I shot every picture this past weekend in Camera Raw. I'm not going to touch it here. I'm just going to simply say open. Okay. We'll open the photograph in the editor, and there is the original photograph. Again, I said I really like this photograph. I think it's, you know, it's just an interesting shot. So, all right, I'll pat myself on the back for that one. Let's go ahead and do some editing of this photograph here. So if you have Photoshop Elements, this will work with any version. You don't have to worry about what version you're currently using. The first thing we're going to do is duplicate the background. The reason we do that, as you know, if you've watched many of these videos on this channel, you'll know that we duplicate the background so we don't destroy the actual baseline image. We do that by simply holding our Control key down, or if you're using a Mac, it's a Command key, Control J. What I like to do then is I shut that first background layer off. I don't really need it because I have the full image now as a new layer, and I can start working on this photograph. The first step is to make a selection. Now you can use any selection tool you want to use, and I'm going to use the quick selection tool here. So over on my toolbar, it is the fourth tool if you're using Photoshop Elements 2022 is what version this currently is. It will be on that bottom one under select. You can also just hit the letter A on your keyboard for quick selection of that tool. We're going to start from the very top left corner, and I'm just clicking and dragging my mouse to the right, however you're watching this video. So we're going to drag this over, and we're going to start laying out this selection here. Drag it all the way over here to the right. Okay. Starting on the left, going to the right. Now we have to play with this a little bit to kind of adjust it to exactly where we want our blur to be. So we can, and the reason we're blurring this is we're going to pull the foreground image up to make it more interesting and blur the background out a little bit, just so we can blow out the background a little bit to kind of take it away from the viewer's eyes. So you want the viewer to see exactly what you have in the foreground of the image. All right, so I'm going to go right across the top of this bridge on the background here. I'm going to go up the rail, across the top of the rail, down the other side just a little ways, and right about there, and come across. Now at this point you might be saying, Jack, you're crazy, that looks nuts. It's because it's going to be across that bridge, and you would be exactly right. But what we have to do is clean it up a little bit now. Okay, takes a little bit of finesse, it takes a little bit of work. The selection is one of the most important things you can do when you're editing a photo. All right, so if we go down to our bottom tools here, I have the quick selection up on my tool palette on the bottom, and we're going to click on subtract. Okay, if you put your mouse over it, it has what's called a helper text. The helper text will allow you to select the tool. So we're going to subtract, and we're going to just come back up to our picture, and we're just going to start coming across some areas we don't want to blur out. All right, I'm going to come up across the post here. up across the top of the bridge. And that looks reasonable. We're going to come up here. I don't want it to blur the bridge out, so I'm going to come up to here. And we're going to try to add all this. So we're going to subtract all this down here. So we'll come up to the top of the bridge rail, come back across, right back across the back of the bridge, right up across the top of the railing, right across the top of the railing and down. Okay, again. We'll add right across there. Okay. There is our selection. Now you can see I used two different tools. I used the quick selection tool here on the right, and I also used the lasso tool. Okay, so you can use different selecting methods and select an area. All right, now that that's all selected, we're going to now make a duplicate of that selected area. Okay, you can do this by using your Control J key again. So let's do Control J. And there we go. We now have a new layer with only what we selected. So if you see, I just turned off the eyeball, the visibility on layer 1. And there you go. So now you can rename these layers so you don't actually get mixed up here. So we'll call this background. All right. And layer 2, we're going to rename that, and we're just going to call that blur. That way you don't get really confused with layers, because layers can build on layers, can build on layers. Now with blur selected, okay, blur is selected, you're going to go up to filter, go down to blur, and you can use any blur method you want. I particularly like Gaussian blur. Click on Gaussian blur. And you can see the blur on the background there already. You see how the background's blurring out. You can make it more. You can up the pixels, really blur it out, but I think you're going to lose too much from the photograph. So we're going to blur that to about 18. That looks reasonably well. Let's click OK on that. Okay, now we have that blurred out. You can already see that the bridge now is starting to come to the forefront. We're bringing that out. So your viewer, when they view this photo, their eyes are going to go right to that bridge, and that's where you want them to be. Now you might be saying, hey Jack, wait, in the middle of the bridge back there is not blurred out. You're right. So let's go ahead. We're going to go ahead and fix that. So let's go back on the background. Okay. And now we're going to use just our lasso tool. Yeah, we'll use the lasso tool. We're going to click on add. And we're just going to kind of go in that background right there and just make a little lasso down around there. Okay, we're going to lasso that, go across the bottom of the bridge, go back up. There's our selection. Do a Command or Control J again. You can see now that we are on layer 1. We're going to rename this. I'm going to name this Blur 2. You can name it whatever you want. Blur 2. Oops. I don't know why I hit 3 on there. Blur 2. Enter. And again, just go up, click on your filter, Gaussian blur. There you go. We have it blurred. All right. So it's just going back off the same settings we just had. So if we go into Gaussian blur again, blur, Gaussian blur, you'll see it is still 18 pixels. Let me pull this up here. You'll still see it's 18 pixels right there. Okay, so it's exactly what we had. So when your tool is used and you go to filter and it's up here on the top and you click it, it'll give you the same effect that you just set. Now, the one thing I noticed when I was editing this picture earlier was just this. It seemed a little dark. The bridge didn't really seem to pop off the screen. So I wanted the bridge to kind of pop. So what I'm going to do now is I'm clicking on the background again. And all I'm going to do is go up to my create new fill or adjustment layer. So this is going to create another layer for you. And we're going to go down to brightness and contrast. Brightness and contrast, we're going to just bring up the brightness a little bit. Don't bring it up too much because you'll blow it out. Just bring it up enough to kind of make the bridge pop off the screen. Right about, I still think that might be too light, but that's okay. We're going to bring our contrast down a little bit and make it a little bit more contrasty. There you go. Just adjust that. And even though you're seeing my brightness at 80 and my contrast at -29, this is a very personal choice. It's to your taste, whatever you want. Once that is done, all we have to do at this point is simply click OK. Think that your blur is darker than your foreground. You can fix that just by clicking on it. We're going to go up, and once again, we're going to click on brightness and contrast, and we can bring that up also, the blur. Just bring it up a little bit, just so it doesn't look darker than your photograph, than your foreground. All right, there we go. Once you have the total photograph done and everything is the way you want it to be done, you have to save the image out. There's two ways to save an image. One is go to File, Save As. I always like to do this first. I'm going to save it as a PSD file. Now, if you've watched any of my old videos, I hope you have. If not, go back and watch those. The PSD file will save all those layers exactly the way they are, because you may want to come back in here later and do some more editing. So I'm going to say bridge with layers. I'm going to save it out. Bridge with layers, and save it. Now, the bad thing about that is you cannot send a PSD file to a developer and have it printed off and have it sent back to you, such as like our sponsors, SmugMug. Okay, so SmugMug cannot take that picture as a PSD and develop it for you. So you have to go to File, Save As again. This time we're going to name it Bridge, Edited. Okay, but we want to save that out as a JPEG. So we're saving it as a JPEG, and it's going to compress all those layers down together into one file. So hit save. At that point, it's going to come up and it's going to tell you it's going to be on maximum. It's going to be 9.4 megabytes. Okay, you might say, wow, Jack, that's a pretty big file. You can make this smaller if you're posting it to a social media platform like Facebook or Instagram or something like that. But we're going to leave it all the way to max because I want to have this developed and printed so I can hang it on my wall. Okay, such as the pictures you can't see above me. Click on OK, and that's going to save it out. So folks, I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial on background blurring or foreground pictures, or bringing pictures to the forefront. I don't know what I'll call this video. But anyway, I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and I will be bringing you more tutorials. So again, if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up. Please click the subscribe button. I would appreciate that. And tell your friends to come over and visit the channel. I will talk to you next time. Until then, remember, keep your shutters clicking, keep your editors editing, and I'll see you back here next time.